Is the next generation lost, or is there hope for America? That's the question we're going to ask, and I think we're going to get some good answers. This is Randy Osborne with another edition of Florida Government Watch and Florida Eagle Forum. We have a guest today, Allison Osborne. Yes, it is my daughter. But I will tell you this, that we have not prepared questions. Is that right?
That's correct.
So these are going to be completely candid questions, but we're going to ask about this next generation, millennials. We're going to have some conversation about that. And first of all, Allison, I just want you to tell a little bit to the viewers about what's going on with you. What are you doing right now? Where are you going to school? What are you taking? Some of those things.
Sure. So I am currently a senior at the King's College in New York City. I'm studying politics, philosophy, and economics as my major, and then foreign affairs and theology as my two minors. Just decided I want to do everything. And I'm interning at the Philos Project, which is a nonprofit that encourages Christian engagement in the Middle East. And I'm home for Christmas break.
Absolutely awesome. Now I will say this, I'm going to try my best to not make this a bragging video. Okay, so it's going to be a little difficult because, you know, I'm the parent and all that, but we're going to try to make it so it's not a one-sided conversation that Dad's bragging about his daughter. So a couple things I want to ask. You're going to the King's College in New York City. Mm-hmm. And tell me about some of the experiences that you've had while at the King's College, some of the things that you've been challenged with at the King's College. And I'm referring to challenging educational-wise, things of that nature.
King's approach to education is very classical, which I really appreciate because I think it gets to the fundamentals about humanity and about nature that can be applied in pretty much anywhere of life. There are definitely challenges being in New York City. It's a very large city and place, and with that comes a lot of examples of what goes on in such a concentrated area, from bombs going off to little crazy things like that. Protests are pretty regular. They happen a lot, but it's an example of what you can see lived out throughout the world.
Okay. And, you know, the big question that we have, and for the viewers, I guess it's the question, is as we see the next generation growing up, we see millennials, we hear all kinds of things, and we've got so many new terms, snowflakes, things of that nature. Can you kind of tell me what your perspective on this next generation is? What are the challenges that you see that you're going to be facing as you go into, you know, a job, family, things of that nature?
I think that's a deep question, but I think it kind of revolves around millennials feeling entitled to things and the narcissistic tendencies that they tend to have. I think that is a challenge that affects so many areas of life because it stems from relativism or egotism and beliefs that they can basically do whatever they want to get whatever result that they want. And when you have a mentality like that and you leave out morality and you leave out the rest of society, it can cause a power struggle and selfishness, and it's kind of the root of all evil. So,
isn't that just really, though, human nature? Isn't that something that's isn't that inherent of all generations and of humankind?
It is, but I think it looks very differently today than it has in the past. I think the root of selfishness has existed since the beginning of time, but I think it can be applied in so many different areas specifically because of technology and information that millennials have at their fingertips. They're able to have an audience, or they're able to basically create a platform for themselves so that they can promote their own ideas to gain their own self-gratifications.
Do you think technology has had a big role in what's going on with the younger generation?
Well, for sure. I think it provides a way for an individual to be able to do things that in the past an individual would have had to have a group of people to accomplish. So you can create a news broadcasting just as yourself, and you don't have to have some big monopolistic network necessarily. And I think that provides a lot of entrepreneurial spirits, which can be good, but also it can cause people to focus only on the individual self instead of society as a whole.
Right. Now, in New York City, as a lot of the viewers know, that's kind of the hub of a lot of things. Hub of commerce, hub of...
It's called the center of the world.
Center of the world. It's also considered the center of protests.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I know you've experienced some of those, even having problems getting back and forth to school. And I think millennials have been tagged for the whole protest movement. And what's your opinion on it? Is that true, or is it something much deeper than that? What is your take on that?
So I think millennials are definitely involved in it, but I don't think it necessarily stems from millennials trying to make a point or trying to be super radical. I think they're given a proposal by someone, leadership, to basically express themselves, and they're almost given a bait to give them what they want or what they think that they want, and then they kind of take that and do whatever they're told, or told to express themselves however they would like. And people are creative with that, and they try to, because again, they try to bring themselves gratification in whatever they do to promote themselves over others. They do whatever means that might be, whether it's violence or just crazy stupidity.
Do you think some of these organized protests, like the one on Wall Street, things of that nature, do you think it's much deeper than just a bunch of young people getting together and saying, hey, let's go protest this because this is something that we don't believe in?
Yeah, I think it's a philosophy that people believe. The climate change philosophy, they feel like businesses are crowding out the allowance for nature to be nature and be natural, and so they hate big cities, they hate capitalism, and they blame it for a lot of harm that they see in society and environment, and they take that out by coming up with some sort of protests. Yeah.
Now, this is kind of a tough question because I know where you came from. But I'm going to ask it anyway. And again, I know that you were homeschooled. Now you're going to a private Christian school. But I need to ask the question: where do you feel like that this in this generation these philosophies have come from? Like socialism is a huge thing, especially with the millennial generation. Where do you think that came from?
I'll give a broad answer, and then I'll specify a little bit more. I think it's from people not being restrained. They don't have constraints in their life, and I think that comes out in the family and in their education. So, of course, me being homeschooled would kind of brag a little bit about that. But I've seen and talked to a lot of people that in the public education system don't receive the means to understand, or also they're just given false information about how this should work. And also in the home, you don't have a lot of involved parents. And when that happens, there are no constraints, but instead the person is left to themselves to figure out whatever they want. And I think that can cause a lot of problems.
Right. And then the last question that I'm going to ask, and again, I want the viewers to know that these are completely unplanned questions, so I'm kind of putting her on the spot. But if you were able to talk to an audience about your generation, about ultimately what you could do to help fix America or make it better.
Make America great again?
That would be an interesting term. I think it's been used before, but we'll go with that. What would it be? What would it be?
Oh, goodness. How to fix everything? You're asking me how to fix world problems?
Well, pretty much what is the most difficult thing that you see that your generation is facing?
I think it's an education problem. In so many ways.
I promise the viewers I have not prepped her. She is completely making this stuff. She's not making it up. She's actually coming up with this on her own.
I think it's an education problem with spiritual life, with social life, and public life, and with just like institutional life, whether it's in church or government or school or whatever that might be.
What do you, and I'll kind of add this question, you mentioned spiritual, and do you think the church is being effective with this generation?
No. And I believe it's because the church has lost its sense of community entirely. They don't know how to reach their community, but not just reach it as a reach out. You hear that a lot in churches. We're going to have a reach out program, but how to reach out for Christ specifically. And also, once you have believers in the church, there's no sense of a body of Christ, whether it's even locally or universally.
Good answer. Excellent answer. Well, I want to close out with this. This is from the actual voice of a millennial. Yes, she is my daughter, and these were candid questions, but I appreciate you coming on and kind of giving your insight on the millennial and this generation. Thank you. This is Randy Osborne with Allison Osborne. Until next time, God bless.